Alright guys, so here's the review of the Egard Quantus Carbon Beast. So I was contacted by Egard to see if I wanted to check out any of their watches on the website. Had a quick look round. This one jumped out at me straight away. So right up front, I've got this in for review. I don't get to keep it, I've got to send it on to someone else. But as always, it's not going to change the way I do my reviews. I'm going to keep it 100% honest all the time, no matter what. So the question is, does it live up to the name? Is it any good? Let's get down to it and find out. So here it is, and as you can see, even from the box alone, it's definitely living up to its name of Beast, because it is a huge box. Got the Egard branding on there, Egard, not sure how you pronounce that, one of the two. God, it's that bloody big, it's struggling to focus. Okay, so quickly open this up, show you what else we get in here. I'll move this to one side in a second, otherwise the camera's going to struggle to focus. So we've got the instruction manual for the Quantus Carbon Beast. A little bit of information about the brand, how it started, which is nice. And then we've got the specs, the usual stuff. Pop that to one side, and here's the watch itself. So it is pretty out there. It's definitely not going to be to everyone's taste, but even if you're not planning on buying one, it's definitely an interesting piece just to check out. So get a quick zoom in on that dial. Well, I say dial. The dial and the movement bit at the bottom, because there is a lot going on here. So you can see straight away, we've got that limited edition at the bottom. So apparently there's going to be 3,000 of these made, so fairly limited. Then we've got that dual balance wheel at the bottom. So the movement in this is I think it's pronounced G. I'll probably put it on screen. It's a Chinese movement, but then Egard actually modify it themselves. Don't really know what they do, they just say they modify it, so I'm guessing they like clean it up a bit and maybe add a few more blued screws or something. But it's definitely an interesting look. So then, other than that, we've got the actual dial, where you're going to be telling the time at the top there. And then we've got that carbon fibre. I think it's actually carbon fibre from what they told me. On the dial underneath. We haven't got a second hand on this, but with it being that small a dial, you're probably not going to need it anyway, because this isn't really a kind of watch you're going to be accurately telling the time on. It's more of a fashion style watch, which I know is going to put some people off straight away, but it's definitely a statement piece if you're going to be wearing this. So quickly zoom back out, and we'll talk about the rest of it. So be prepared for this now. This is a rather chunky watch. So here's the side profile. Yeah, that was what I thought as soon as I opened the box. But then the next thing I noticed was that crystal. I've not seen anything like that before. A curved crystal like that. That is pretty unique. Especially with the shape of the case as well. It's definitely not something you see all that often, if ever. It's really interesting. And then we can got a nice two-piece case as well. Interestingly enough, the lugs are actually part of the bottom part, and then the other bit is a separate piece on its own, which is interesting. So the finish on the case is actually gunmetal, and they've got, if I can get it to focus, we've got the Egard logo on the crown. A nice bit of grip on that crown as well. So that's not an issue. Quickly going to zoom out, so I'll talk about that a bit more actually. So it's just a push-pull crown. We don't have a date function. Just turn it, change the time, pop it back in. Obviously we don't have a second hand, so not going to worry about that. Yeah, there you go, you can see right through the actual movements there. So I'll quickly show you the back. because the back is quite nice as well actually. Gonna zoom in again. We've got a custom rotor on that, again with the branding on. And then we've got sapphire crystal, automatic movement, dual balance wheel, and you can see there's a nice bit of finishing on that. So it's just screwed down case back, not an actual screw down case back, actual physical screws. And then if I zoom back out again, talk about this. So we've got a matching gunmetal finish butterfly clasp, which works well enough. And then we've got the Egard branding on there again. Now with the actual strap, they say on their website that this is actually carbon fibre. Whether it is or not, I'm not really sure, because I've not really experienced carbon fibre, so I'm not too sure if it is. It definitely doesn't feel like leather. It feels different to that. It feels, I don't really know, it just feels different. But then we have got leather underneath. So make of that what you will. It may or may not be carbon fibre, but either way, it does look pretty good. Goes with the rest of the watch, and it is a nice finish. And it's definitely tying in with the theme of the watch. So now, seeing as we've briefly touched on it, let's talk about this crystal a bit more. Let's test it out, see if it is actually sapphire. Because if it is, that is pretty cool. And let's try it with the trusty diamond selector too. So, yep, it is actually sapphire crystal, which is pretty damn cool. Because I imagine that probably isn't that cheap, because that's definitely custom. And I do like the distortion you get from that as well. It's a really cool effect. In fact, I'm going to zoom in on that. So it's almost like a stepped effect, which is pretty interesting. And you can see the depth in that dial now as well. Before we go on to that any more though, let's quickly test out the back. And that's just mineral on the back, but that's not too big a deal. You don't really tend to get sapphire on the back of a lot of watches. So now let's get on to the measurements of this thing. We'll leave thickness till last. We'll start with the others. So we've got a diameter of 43mm. Got a lug width of 22. So when it comes to the lug to lug, it's not as big as you'd expect. It's just a touch over 50, so 50.3. That's because you've got quite a significant downturn on those lugs. So it helps conform to wrist a bit better. But then the all-important measurement, the one that's probably going to be a deal breaker if people are actually interested in this watch, is 15.5 thick. So again, definitely living up to its name. It's definitely a beast. Definitely not a subtle watch by any means. But I'm sure it's going to be someone's kind of taste. Whether it's mine or not, I'm still a bit undecided. But I'll show you in a minute what it's like on wrist. Before we do that, let's quickly take a look at the Lume shot. You're probably wondering, is the Lume on this at all? Let's find out. So you might not be able to see anything at the moment, but let's get the torch out. That's pretty cool. You can actually see the reflection of the blued screws and the gems and stuff, jewels. Interesting. So you probably got a little glimpse then. There is some on the hands. And there it is. So it's not a lot of Lume. It's not really all that great, but I guess it's better than nothing. But again, this isn't the kind of watch where you're probably realistically going to be using it to tell the time a lot often. It's more of a statement piece, more of, like I say, a fashion watch, which some people won't like, but it will be some other people's tastes. So now all it's left to do is show you what it's like on wrist. So here it is on my 7-inch wrist, and I have to admit, it does actually wear a bit better than I thought it was going to. When I first took it out of the box, I was thinking, there is no way this is going to fit me. It's going to be way too big. Obviously it's still ridiculously thick, but with that pretty compact long to lug, given the actual dimensions otherwise, it does actually wear on wrist, bar the thickness obviously, not too badly. And again, with that crazy crystal on there, it just adds to the depth of the dial, and it just adds a really cool distortion. So it definitely is a watch that screams, look at me. Definitely not subtle, but probably in the best way possible. So if that's your kind of thing, I'll leave links down in the description if you do want to check it out, and maybe even buy one. I don't get any commission or anything, I just checked it out, don't get paid for any of this, the usual. I just thought it was an interesting piece to check out. Thought you guys might find it interesting too. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.